Morning. Today's story comes to us from Luke chapter 13. When Jesus is on the road to Jerusalem, and it takes place in some town or village along the way. Note that there are two tragic events described which Jesus uses as a teaching moment. I'll give some extra context now that we actually know nothing about these events other than what is recorded in the gospel. However, in the case of the first event, we do know that Pontius Pilate was the Roman governor of Judea, and he was known for his brutal suppression of dissent. And Galileans, on the other hand, were known for their zeal for Jewish independence. In the case of the second event, also not recorded elsewhere, we know that the pool of Siloam was a significant site in Jerusalem, used for ritual purification, and the Tower of Siloam, as mentioned, was likely near there. So on this occasion, there were some who were present who told Jesus about the Galileans whom Pilate had killed while they were offering sacrifices. And Jesus replied to them, "Do you think that the suffering of these Galileans proves that they were more sinful than all the other Galileans? No, I tell you," he said, "but unless you change your hearts and your lives, you will die just as they did." And Jesus continued, "What about those 18 people who were killed when the Tower of Siloam fell on them? Do you think that they were more guilty of wrongdoing than everyone else who lives in Jerusalem? No, I tell you, but unless you change your hearts and lives, you will die just as they did." And Jesus told this parable. A man owned a fig tree planted in his vineyard. He came looking for fruit on it and found none. And so he said to his gardener, "Look, I've come looking for fruit on this fig tree for the past 3 years, and I've never found any. Cut it down. Why should it continue depleting the soil's nutrients?" But the gardener responded, "Lord, give it 1 more year, and I will dig around it and give it fertilizer. Maybe it will produce fruit next year. If not, then you can cut it down." So I invite you now to wander along with me about today's story. And thank you. We'll put out the coloring materials for anybody who wants to grab those and join in the wandering through the coloring. I wonder why the people came to tell Jesus and to tell him about what had happened to these Galileans when they were offering sacrifices in the Jerusalem temple.
Maybe it was a warning.
Okay.
That he could have a similar fate.
Sure. So you're going to Jerusalem. Be warned. Other times when some Galileans went there,
Not good things happen.
this bad thing happened. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wonder what they had expected Jesus to say in response.
It feels similar to the other tricky questions they've lobbed at him about, like working on this, or healing on the Sabbath and gathering grain from the fields and things like that, where they were trying to trip him up. And I've heard people in modern times use similar things to say, like, oh, this tragedy happened because the people are sinners, and this was God's punishment for that. And I would have a hard time respecting and following somebody who was like, you're right, that is what happened. So, I don't know if that was the intent of the people when they asked these questions, but maybe it's included in Luke's telling because it shows that Jesus wasn't like, yeah, God will knock you out.
Sure, yeah, so there's, so perhaps back to the original question about why they came to tell him about this, there was perhaps as you said, trying to trip him up, like other questions people have brought to him, trying to stop him in his tracks a little bit, and giving him another theological challenge to wrestle with that they expect him to not have an answer for. Sorry, I can't see very well over here. So.
I'm just going to talk in my direction if you can't see me. I guess I had a little bit of a, not totally opposite thought, but sort of opposite thought, that they were asking Jesus if they followed him, or if they followed God, his preaching of God, if they would be saved, that would make them protected, that automatically they wouldn't have these pains.
Sure. So perhaps they were hoping or wanting that following him meant they would be saved, perhaps physically.
It would be an exception clause.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That there was a limited liability to following Jesus.
Maybe in the next expectation you might celebrate those folks as martyrs.
Sorry, say that again.
Maybe an expectation that you might celebrate those folks as martyrs in that moment.
Okay, so a different way of thinking about it is trying to celebrate those Galileans who were killed, perhaps martyred by Pilate. Martyrdom can incite the growth of a movement of folks who see an injustice and want to correct that.
When people talk about bad things happening in the world, I change your life, right? or it's like, or this will happen to you. And it's never about like what's here, like make me feel comfortable about, or make sense of, oh, those are bad people, or good people will get vengeance. Either or. It's actually, Jesus talks to the people that are asking about it.
Right, so it's so easy, I think what you're saying is it's so easy to talk about, other people doing bad things, but Jesus is like, no, you change your life. Yeah.
It's not the comforting thing that, that confirms your bias one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's really good or really bad.
Yeah. It's a surprising response to hear it suddenly be about, I'm just gossiping about something else I heard, and then suddenly it's about me.
It's confusing to me though, because he is saying change your life, or a tower will fall on you. But those people were still very much going to die, whether they change their lives or not. You can change your life, but the bad things will still happen.
Yeah, so what do you think that means then? And how would you address that?
It's
That,
confusing.
what's it called? Cognitive dissonance. It's confusing, yeah.
I agree. And I wondered if this was a place where we were talking about like a more eternal existence. So it's not about who's in your life right now, but about whether you get to be kingdom of heaven or something like that. And I still have cognitive dissonance, even if that's the explanation. But I wondered the same thing, and then that led me to wonder, is he not just talking about mortal life? There's more.
Right, so perhaps it seems as if he's talking about something more than mere mortal life. What exactly that means, he's not defining, at least not here.
The first two are very much like killing or being killed. And then the third one sticks out because it's giving a chance to something. I don't know why there's such a difference between his first and his second, between his first and second and his third example.
Right, so this is a historical event where a ruler killed some Galileans. This is a historical event where a building collapsed and killed some people in Jerusalem. Both of these happened in Jerusalem. And then this is a parable that he tells that refers, seems different. It's about
Giving something a chance and
giving a chance.
the possibility of growth.
Yeah. So how do you make sense of that?
I think the servant who's watering and planting the fig tree is supposed to be like Jesus, and the fig tree is a person. And Jesus is saying to maybe a ruler or someone, don't get rid of this person. They still have a chance. No one is meant to die just because they're not perfect.
Sure. So perhaps, so you're seeing the gardener as Jesus, the fig tree as a person, and perhaps a way of him speaking to the context of people dying tragically, him saying, I want to step in and offer more life, more chance for life and growth. I can't look over there, but Naomi.
An important thing about the fig tree parable is it's not just that he gave them a chance, which is important. It's important that let's give them one more chance. But in addition to that, to help it thrive. Not just, oh, let's wait.
Sure. So it's not just wait a year, it's also let me actively care for this seed. Yeah, nurture it. So I wonder about that. I wonder why Jesus shares this parable of the fig tree. How that relates to the context.
Am I remembering right that in the two historical stories, the reply was change your heart and change your mind?
Yeah, he said, unless you change your hearts and lives, you will die just as they did.
But that, of course, wasn't offered in the third parable. And so I think that the digging and the tending is that equals is that.
So Jesus's, or the gardener's
It's clearly
caring and
important.
tending for the fruit tree is the changing of hearts and
The
lives.
repetitiveness of that one phrase is clearly showing importance and weight to that. And rather than make sure you remember that one phrase a third time, they're showing you how to make that phrase happen. It's so important. It's everyone hears, oh, just change fill in the blank. And everyone knows that can be very hard.
Sure. Yeah, just being told, we're in Lent. We know how hard it is to willpower our way through becoming better people. But sometimes a change of your context, of the care you receive, can give you the ability to change your life.
I find myself annoyed at the gardener. It's his job. Why did he wait until the caregiver came along and said, I've given up on this tree? And I think also it serves as the reminder of we all have a job to look out for each other and nurture each other before that final before the axe is coming. And that's he has good in his heart. He wants to save that tree.
But clearly the gardener wasn't doing as good of a job as they could have done until this moment.
That's the message I'm taking is I'm living my life, but maybe my job is to be looking out for my community and noticing when people are not thriving.
Sure. So instead of Jesus as the gardener, you're saying yourself as the gardener and feeling inspired to not wait until the last moment. Right. And instead, offer that care even before, it comes down to the wire. Yeah.
Jess. Jess.
To me, in some ways, I hear it as a little bit of a message of, prophetic message of warning and salvation to the people of Israel. And that in that context of being in an occupied land in a city that's been torn down before, and having had that story of loss as part of your understanding of your identity, to have that sort of threat of death by outsiders, or the walls collapsing upon you. But this is kind of your warning moment, and yet we have an opportunity as people at the end of our third day with some sort of salvation in some form, how we choose to interpret that, and that this is our moment for change to take place and to avoid this fate of destruction.
Thank you. And sorry, I'm noticing the reenactment of the Tower of Siloam that's happening right up here. And so, finding myself not fully able to encapsulate what you just shared. Could you just summarize that for us?
Yeah, the summary point is that, I think it seems to be a message of warning and salvation for the people of Israel.
Warning and salvation for the people of Israel, yes. So last week we heard about Jesus wanting to gather the people of Israel, of Jerusalem, under his wings like a mother hen. And this week we hear this story about the gardener, which may be Jesus, may be us, may be many things. But I wonder how these images form your understanding of who God is.
Well, the hen thing, being protected by the hen, seems very loving and compassionate God. This God, from this reading, feels a little bit more threatening to me.
This God feels more threatening in this reading. Because of the historical events, because of the gardener. Say more.
I heard it kind of like, do this or else.
Okay, yeah. So produce fruit or else. Sure, yeah, so you feel more of a threat here.
Just one here.
Just to echo what she was saying, the thing that kind of speaks to me and seems incongruous with the whole message of God and always forgiving and ever loving and whatnot is that, okay, we'll give you fertilizer this year, and if it doesn't work, next year you can cut it down.
Yeah, okay. So there's still the hanging threat, which you're feeling and wrestling with.
I mean, I see the presence of these messages that don't necessarily jive as kind of Jesus speaking to the people back then who were used to maybe a slightly more vengeful notion of a God than the one that maybe Jesus spoke to afterwards. And that's kind of what people expected at that point was, a vengeful God.
Sure.
And so he kind of has to do both to really kind of show, there is a more expansive notion of what God can be in your life, and that is both loving, and vengeful.
Yeah. So he's adding nuance or alternatives to the existing vengeful God idea.
Well, maybe it's more like the goddess moves mountains, bring a shovel. Maybe what he's saying is, you've got this tyrant who's behaving in tyrannical ways, and you've got these buildings that are not built up to code. If we as a community change, if we change our rulership structure, if we change how we think about buildings that are meant to house people, these things won't happen.
Sure. So we have the ability to make sure these things don't happen.
We have the responsibility to be gardeners and to take good care of them.
I wonder where, given all that we've described, I wonder where the good news is for you today.
It's like this thing happen, these like negative things have happened. If you change your heart and like change your ways, things will turn out better.
So you have the power to make the changes that will improve your life in the world.
To me, it's bad things happen, but let's repent. So when we go down,
Go down beautifully. Yeah. Okay.
To me, it sounds really optimistic that actually we aren't at the mercy of vengeful gods and we decide that we're sinners and slow us down, and that we each have an opportunity to add fertilizer, that we can take action and change an outcome. Right?
But you feel a sense of agency.
Yeah.
For me, I just keep thinking about this because I think the term is theodicy. Is that the term for when? Why do bad things happen?
Why do bad things happen to good people? In a sense,
Yes.
yes.
And there I think about 15, 20 years ago, a rabbi wrote a book that was called When Bad Things Happen to Good People.
Sure.
And for me, I never read the book, but I know it caused a lot of people really found it interesting. And I'm sort of thinking, okay, for me, the good news is it's time for me to read that book because it seems like this story is really about the puzzlement of, why does a building suddenly collapse? Why does a bridge, go down, like we saw in Baltimore a few years ago, and construction workers lose their lives? I mean, why do these things happen?
Yeah, the easy and false answer is, this is God's punishment for these sinful people. And that's clearly what Jesus is saying. That's not, let's not take the easy answer here. and so you're hearing that good news for you is the urge to delve into this more. Yeah. All right, last word, Jess? Are you going to share something?
Yeah, I think that in just trying to pull those different stories together along with Christ's words we understand, to me it's of being shown a way of loving, living, and dying that gives new life to people. And thinking of the sacrificial nature of the mother and of the gardener coming in as they come and fertilize this tree.
So the loving and living gives new life. The sacrificial nature of God.
I just want to know, do we get figs the next year? My whole thing is like, okay, so where's the end of the story? What happens?
Know the end of the story. Well, thank you all for wandering along with me about today's story.